we're working on this 1979 Ford F250 by Hot Wheels. I stripped this one down and spray painted it, I guess about 5 years ago, and I never did get around to finishing it for some reason. I think it's because I didn't like this back. I don't care for the way it's molded. There are no windows unless you want to paint some on or try to cut holes in it. So we're going to eliminate this plastic back. And when you do that, you have no tailgate and the bed looks hideous. So I'm going to make a camper out of poster board and make it a camper special. I already started going through this Tichy Train Group window assortment. I buy these for my model making and I keep them in these little containers. So I already started going through the container and picking out some possible pieces. I'm going to set all these, not all of these, but I'm going to set some of these pieces aside that we're going to be using, and then we'll start the build. I think this window here might look good in the side of a camper. It's rounded on one side and flat on the other. I could see that in some kind of side window. So I'm going to take two of those, put those aside. I went through all my doors, and this is about the best choice I have for a door. If I wanted something more narrow, this is the other option I have. But I think it's going to be between one of these two doors, so we'll set those doors aside. And then I have a bunch of other window options. I definitely think these here would be a good choice. That reminds me of something you would see in a camper. So I'll set those aside. So that's what we'll be working with. All right, now that we got our windows and door figured out, I think another reason I never finished this is I didn't have any wheels for it. And I still don't have a lot of good options today. But I think I'm going to maybe use this one or the wheels off of this one. I'll have to think about it for a minute. If I took the wheels off of this Jeep, those wouldn't look too bad. I don't know if I like that chrome ring that goes around the wheel though. I don't know. It's a possibility. I also have this Toyota. For some reason I like the look of this too, so I don't know which one. I don't know. I guess this looks more typical maybe. Decisions. I think I'm going to crack them both open and see what happens after that. One of my friends that I made on the channel, Randy Brinkley, also known as Brinkzilla here on YouTube, he gave me this in a box of cars a while back that I opened on the channel. He wanted to see what I was going to do with them. So maybe we'll do something with the wheels off of this one. Let's get it cracked open. If not, I have other plans for it. Now the mounting posts are drilled out on both vehicles, so we can maybe get a better look at the wheels. I plan on customizing both of these at some point, so that's why I didn't mind opening them up. All we're interested in right now, though, are the wheels. Let's see, those look like they're about the right size. I don't mind these wheels, but I'm not totally in love with those wheels either. And for some reason, I just think these look more like something you would see on a Ford truck. I might paint those white in the center if I do use them, maybe. I don't know. For now, I'm going to use these. I don't have all day to keep thinking about it. I'm too indecisive. We're going to use these. I could always change them. Let's go ahead and get them removed and make sure they're going to be the right ones. We'll find some other type of wheels when we go to work on this Toyota. I was thinking about making it more like a car. Let's see if these fit in here and how they fit. Actually, they popped right in there and they spin nice and freely in the back. Same with the front. All right, well, can't argue with that. I'm gonna see how they look. All right, well, I should have figured that was way too easy. They're rubbing the wheel wells, so those wheels are not gonna work, at least not like this. So let's see what the other ones do. I'm kind of thinking they're just gonna do the same thing. They're not very much different in height. Let's see. It's spinning freely and they pop right in place too. Let's see what happens. Same problem. They're kind of touching. I'm surprised. No, I'm not. All right, well, let's see. Now I got to figure out which one I like the most and do something with the axles. We'll get into that next. There are all kinds of ways you can go about putting another axle on here. I think the simplest route in this case may be to try to just put a groove on top of here. There's a lot of extra plastic. I'm going to try to cut a groove on each side that the pins will fit into and just glue them on there. Do that next. Last time I did this, I used a Dremel tool to get it started, and then I finished it up with a triangle file that has a nice square edge. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to start with using my safety glasses. Alright, I got 2 notches on where to start. Now I'm going to finish it with that file. And I'll take a few minutes. I'll spend a few minutes doing that until I get the 2 grooves that I want, and then I'll come back. Alright, after a few minutes of sanding with that file, I got 2 grooves that will hold the wheels into place where I want them, and will have the clearance that was needed. I'll just glue those down into place, and I'll let you guess which wheels I'm going to use. We'll do that soon. Alright, here's our wheel choices. I'm still stuck with the gray ones. I'm going to go with the gray ones. I'm going to glue those in. I think that I like these gray wheels because they're a little bit taller. I think we just need a dab of glue right in the middle, and that should be plenty. Don't want to get them too close to the edge or they'll seize up. Alright, well, just let that dry. If you're worried about them coming back off, you could put a thin layer of epoxy over that. But it should bond pretty good, considering we sanded all the chrome off. We'll go ahead and let this dry, and then we'll start building the camper shell next. Also, if you're going to use this type of super glue, this Scotch gel glue, make sure you put your project in front of a fan or take it outside when it's drying. Otherwise, it will fog the plastic, especially windows. So I'm going to put this in front of a fan while it cures. Alright, I was looking at some pictures online, and some of those old campers are pretty big, and I want it to be bulky and gigantic looking. So I'm thinking it should be about 3 3/8 long. That gives me a ½ inch of overhang past the roof, and that gives it about 3/8 of an inch overhang out of the back. And I think that's going to be about it. So we'll go with 3 3/8 on our length, and we'll make the width the same as this so it fits right in there. I've even thought about maybe trying to attach it to this so it would snap into place. I'll have to study on that, but I do know the width. We're going to start measuring it out on paper, and we'll do 3 3/8 for our length. Trying to visualize a way to incorporate this into the build is not too easy. I think I'm going to take the Dremel tool and cut the top of this off, but leave that angle. Cut it across the top, down the side, and remove the top part. Try to leave the 4 walls and just this angled part in the back. I'm going to take it outside and cut that off next. After some cutting with the razor knife, I should be able to get this off the rest of the way, and then I'll take a file and clean it up. I finally got that off of there. I might cut this area out. The main reason I want to get rid of this is the vehicle is going to have windows, and even though you might not see much inside there, I just don't want you to see that if you look inside. And I might try to cut this tailgate area out, and hopefully this will make some type of frame, because that does fit in there nicely and it kind of snaps into place. So I'll clean this up with a file, then we'll start building something with poster board. Alright, I'll clean that up a little bit with the file. Alright, I think I have something here I can work with. If not, we can just scrap the whole idea and just build it out of a poster board by itself, but it seemed like it might help. So let's get started. Alright, I think this is going to be my starting point, right where this line is. I'm going to cut a piece of poster board that's as wide as this. It's going to come down 1/8 of an inch, make a 90-degree turn, then go this way 3/8 of an inch, and then we'll start to go up. So I'm going to start drawing it out on paper to get an idea of what it's going to look like. Do that. Alright, I keep coming up with different ideas. I'm going to, instead of starting with the paper, I'm going to use this matchstick instead. It fits in there perfectly, and it gives me something to build off of with the paper. So that'll be our first piece. Alright, I've been going back and forth on how to do this since it's all from scratch. I am going to use the matchstick, but I'm going to change my dimensions. Alright, I'm going to make it 1 inch and 3/8 wide. That's going to be the width of the camper. So we'll make that the width, and then we'll come out 3/8 of an inch, and then we'll go up. Okay, so I'll start making that. I'll probably need several of these for the build, but this will be our first piece as a template. And that's how wide the camper will be without any sheeting on the sides, which is not going to make much of a difference, but I'll cut some more pieces for that width. We'll start to build a wood frame with these, and then we'll wrap the wood frame with poster board. Not all matchsticks are created equal, so you have to look them over. If one is real crooked or arched or something, it will show up in the poster board, so I'm trying to pick the best ones. And the end here has always got a weird taper to it, so I'll take a razor knife and I knock off the softer end, the flammable end, and then I'll save that end. It's pretty square usually. Oh, yeah, see how square that looks? I knock that off, and then I'll trim this side to get a nice square piece. I'll do that with each one of these. And I set it up with a square. There we go. Same size every time because I'm using that. Alright, I've got 8 pieces cut. That should support the roof and the bottom where it's going to come out here and the corners. So we'll figure out what pieces we want to do next. So I need to cut 4 pieces that'll go in between, 2 for the bottom and 2 for the top. So I'll have to figure out what that dimension is between these 2 sticks and make 4 of those. Okay, I changed my mind as I often do. I want the overhang in the back of the vehicle to be longer. So I adjusted it to more like 1/2 an inch, maybe a little bit more like 5/8 of an inch overhang instead of what I said earlier. And where this pencil line is going to be the other pieces, the width of the other pieces we need. So I'll cut this one and then make 4 more. I'll do that next. I just laid them down on the table to show you what they look like, but that'll be the base for the floor where you walk in. And we'll wrap the bottom of that with poster board, and we'll make a 90-degree turn and start coming up for the back wall. And then we'll build another frame like that to support the top of the wall. Now that I have the width and the back figured out, I need to figure out how tall it's going to be. So let's try to get a measurement of that. Alright, I know I want it to sit on top of the back bumper, so I'm going to put this here to simulate the camper. And then I'll get my measurement from that. I went ahead and just traced the truck here on the paper, and then I drew out the dimensions of what I think it's going to look like. the door should fit here with no problem in the back, facing this way of course. But that's how much overhang we'll have, and this is how tall it will be. I think I want the front to look like that, and I like the little rounded spot in the back, I think. So that's what it's going to look like, and I can get my dimensions from looking at this now. The matchsticks that I cut for the width are also the same for the height, so that makes it simple. And it gives me a nice overhang piece up here. So I can cut, well, I'm not going to cut the same size ones just yet because there's also framing underneath here. There'll be framing on top, so that will change them a little bit when I go to make more for the framing. But this is what the height is, the same as the width. And that gives me some room to play around with windows. I might put one there. Let's see, I might put one here or something. Maybe one there, who knows? I'll move them around a little bit. I got this one here that I like, might use. Who knows? I'll see, put it this way too if you wanted. Maybe something like that. After shuffling them around a few different ways, I think I like this option right here. I might do that, and then I got a couple of these we can put vertically across the front for up here, going out the front like this, I think. Or on the bottom. We'll see. Maybe on the top. Either way, I'll put these windows across the front. I got two of those. And then we'll have the door in the back. That's probably all the back needs. But I'm going to trace these into place, and that will be our template for how they're going to be when it's finished. Now that I have something to visualize, it will make it a little bit easier. So we'll get started cutting out the cardboard poster board next. Alright, I put two parallel lines on my poster board, 1 inch apart from each other. The matchstick fits right in between them. Now I'm going to take all these measurements and add them on this vertical line, and then put lines across where the folds will be. So we'll have a piece that will go across the bottom and then have a fold, go up to the top, then a curve, go across, fold, fold, and go under and stop. And that'll be all one piece, and then hopefully I can have the sides fold down. Let's see how it goes. If I put this curve into the design, it's probably going to change my math a little bit, so when I cut this out, I won't cut these two folds here until I find out, because I'm sure this is going to change. But we'll have more than enough at least, because we're going to gain material when we go into this curve, so we don't have anything to worry about as long as we don't cut anything here yet. What I did was I took all these measurements and I marked them along this edge, and then I took a straight edge and came across and got these lines. It's just easier to do that with your straight edge because you can follow the edge of the paper to make sure you're square. Next, I'm going to draw out the side walls, and hopefully when I cut this, I'll just fold it and it'll all be one piece of poster board. I'll figure out the side walls next. The easiest way I see to do this is to cut out the actual paper that I made the pattern from, lay it down here, and I'll trace it. Then I'll flip it over, move it over here, trace it again, and then I'll have the two side walls. And I'm going to leave this open to interpretation back here. I'm not going to cut that out till I do my final folds because I'm not sure how much this angle is going to affect the length. But I know everything else is going to stay the same. So I'll trace this and then start cutting this out next. Alright, I got everything marked out. I'm going to cut this out and then we'll start folding it to get our shape. What I need to do is make the base wider. So I made some measurements. This is the same width as the camper when you look at it that way. Same width as the camper. I'll cut this area out where the X is. Once that X is gone, this should just slide right in there. There's a little ridge on the bottom here. I'll be able to glue the poster board right on that ridge on each side. So I'll cut that X out, glue these pieces on that ridge, and it'll bend and go up at an angle right here where this line is, and that will fit like this when I make that bend, and that little bit should fill the top end that's sticking up. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out with a razor knife next, and then we can start putting it together. When I cut this, there's a little tiny piece up here that's going to be really weak, so I'm going to add this matchstick for strength before I make the final cut there. And that will strengthen it up for the cut, and it'll also be structural for the camper itself. Alright, let's see how this works out. I bent the top a little bit to match this angle. If I cut it right, it should slide right over this. I left it a little long in the back so I could trim more off. Yeah, it's sliding over it. Okay, there we go. I think I can go ahead and attach this permanently to this gray structure. Let me double check and make sure I don't want to cut this first, but once that goes around there, the box that we made should fit right over that and have something to bond to. I'll put some more matchsticks for framework. I double checked and it's the right length, so I'm going to go ahead and super glue it along this edge on both sides. I think that's enough glue. Alright, that's right where I want it. I'll glue this in place after those set up, but that should work. Alright, now that this is glued down, you can see how it's going to support the top of this. It's going to fit right around there, and that's going to hold it on the camper. This comes around to here, closes that gap. This comes around to here and closes this gap. Next thing to do is to put more matchsticks in here, because that's what we're going to use to connect everything with. I'll build a matchstick frame. We'll start with putting 2 rails that come down this way. Alright, I have this little piece that is actually just laying on the table that happens to fit right in here and has the right angle on the bottom and everything. I'll slide this in here so you can see what it looks like, and you'll get there just like that. I'll do one more on this side, and then I'll do my rails that come out. There's the driver's side one. After studying it over, I think the ledger boards for the bottom could be 2 plies thick, and that'll make it stronger. So I'll glue 2 side by side after I trim them to the same length as this white poster board. And I'm just using this all-purpose extra strength wood glue to put these sticks down with. Okay, I'll let that dry. Now that these pieces are attached, the poster board will have something to hold on to. As you can see, I can apply glue there, and then now I've got that wood structure to hold on to. I'll keep adding wood structure in places where it's needed, but that's how it's going to be held together. Alright, we had cut some pieces earlier in the video to start sectioning the back of the camper. I'm going to go ahead and start gluing them down. Next, I'll make and install 2 more vertical pieces to do the back wall, so when we close it, it has something to close against. We already got something for the bottom to rest against there, and this back side. So it's coming along good. Just 2 more pieces here, and the back section will be all framed in. The next area that I want to frame in is going to be from here to there, and then be these little points. I'll cut those pieces and glue those down next. Alright, this is how it looks with the front part framed in. And that gives everything something to grab to when I fold this around on all sides. Okay. I think I might put a cross member here and another cross member where that turns, and then some cross members across the top, and then I'm going to frame in where the windows go and frame in where the door goes, and probably a couple cross members back here. Alright, I have all the cross members installed for the roof. I figured out where the door is going to be. Now I need to put 2 vertical cross members for the door and 1 horizontal one. And then once those are in place, I'll have something to guide my razor knife along when I go to make the cut for the door. I'll frame it in with the wood and then follow the wood with the razor blade to cut that out. And then the door will pop right in. I'll make those pieces. Now that I got the frame in there, you can see how the door is going to fit. It's going to be on the outside instead, but any way you go, it's still the same width and height. And when I cut that out, I'll just be able to put it on the opposite side, and it'll fit right in there like it's supposed to, with support on all 3 sides. And I'm going to do the windows the same way. I'm going to do, 3 windows on each side and then something in the front here. Once I get the windows framed in, the hardest part will be done. Alright, I've made a lot of good progress. The only thing left to figure out is how I want to frame in these 2 round windows for each side. I think it should be pretty simple. Just add another piece of framework for it, probably just underneath it. And I still have to put 2 windows across the front. So we've got 4 windows left to install. That's where we're at. And here's the framework for the little front windows. I'm going to put a little vertical piece between the 2. And maybe on the left and right, I don't know. I might just, in the center might be enough, but that will be it for the framing of the windows. The next thing that I'm going to do is cut out the openings for the windows. All I got to do is follow the framework with the razor knife, and that should give me the perfect openings for these to slide in on the opposite side after I cut them out. So I'm going to spend a few minutes cutting all these openings out next. Alright, I finally got all the window areas cut out. Now you can see how they just pop in on the outside, and they'll all go right in the places that I want them. I still gotta clean this one up on both sides with a rounded file. Other than that, they're ready. I think I'll start gluing it together next. Okay, I think we can finally start gluing everything together. I'm going to start, I guess I'll start with the back, and then, because I got to get these trimmed off. Let's do the back first. Alright, I'll hold that for a few minutes and let it dry, and then I'll trim these little corner pieces off. Now I got the rounded area cut. I think I'll go ahead and glue the base that we got from the bed of the truck, and I'll glue this section in here next. Alright, I've got it in there, but I need to hold it in place for a few minutes, and then we'll install this part last. Alright, I can apply glue to the last section and get it stuck into place. Alright, I'll hold that for a few minutes, and then I'll probably start painting, or put the windows in and then start painting. I still have to think about how I want to go next. Alright, I did a test fit just to see how it's coming along, how everything's looking. It fits on the truck great. I'm going to go ahead and install the rest of the windows. I put a few in. I'm going to get all the windows in and then paint it. The next problem to figure out is what color to paint it. I'll think about that while I'm getting the windows installed. Alright, it's ready to paint. I've thought about it as long as I can, and I keep coming back to black windows and gray trim, maybe a different color roof. I'm not sure, but I'm going to go ahead and paint all the windows and doors black. I'm going to do that next, and we'll probably do the body gray. Or white, I don't know. Definitely going to do the black windows. Alright, I got the black color on the door and the windows. I'm going to go ahead and start painting it gray. Alright, now I'm ready to start painting the body. I decided that I'm going to make the roof white and the sides gray. So the white will come down to this green tape, and then underneath that tape there's going to be gray. I'm going to go ahead and get started by painting the roof white first. And that's going to take several coats. I'm using my favorite paint today, which is the Apple Barrel. Satin white. Alright, that's the second coat. The gray might be finished in one more coat. It covered a lot better than the white. I'll let this dry. This is 4 coats of paint on the gray. I still think it needs one more. And I also found these little signs. I'm going to paint those, cut them off, and attach them on the roof to look like air vents. I'll do that soon. Alright, now that I'm done painting the camper, it's time to do something with the truck's interior. And I'm going to paint it brown with the Apple Barrel. This is a gloss brown, I do believe, called Real Brown. And it will take a few coats. Okay, we'll come back while this is drying. We'll go ahead and put a black wash on the truck's grill. I painted the license plate area white. I'll have to let that dry first, and then we'll do the black wash on the back bumper and the front grill. Alright, now we can put on our black wash. I'm still waiting for the interior to dry, but I'm going to go ahead and take the razor knife and remove these 2 pieces. Alright, I'll touch the paint up on those and glue them down. Now I'm waiting on my little roof vents to dry. I found a flat white and painted them white. I found these little circle pieces. They're very small. They're lids for cans is what they are. HO scale oil cans. But anyway, I'm going to use these for tail lights. I painted those. I got 2 of those that are ready. We'll glue those on next and put the back door in place. Back door and tail lights, and then the 2 covers, and I think that's it. I'm going to glue that stuff on the back next. Alright, let's glue the back door in place. Just a little bit of glue. Okay. Alright, I ended up putting some plastic in that one so it has an actual window. Alright, I have another coat of paint on the door. Now we'll put the tail lights on. Okay, that's going to be our tail lights. That's the best thing I could come up with. I'd like to find something for a bumper. I still didn't do that. Maybe I can find a bumper. Alright, I've looked all over, but the best thing I keep coming up with is a matchstick. So I'm going to cut this matchstick to fit, and that's going to be the back bumper. This seat here, I'm going to cut the back of it, and then I'll sand it a little bit, and I'm going to use that for the air conditioner I'll paint that white and place it on the top after I cut the seat back off, and we'll pretend that's the AC. I'll do that next. No, I just need to sand it. Unfortunately, I messed that seat up and had to find another one, so that's why it's gray. I'm going to go ahead and paint that white, and then I think it'll be done. We'll do the final assembly after. We can go ahead and do the final assembly of the truck. The interior's dry, the black wash is dry. Put the windows in. I'll paint the steering wheel black, and then I'll put the interior. Steering wheel's black. One thing I found this little piece here. It looks like a brush guard. I really don't remember what it came off of, but I'm going to glue that on the front. I'm going to glue that right there, and I have a brush guard. And then we can put the camper on it. I took a file and sanded the chrome off of the chassis where this is going to glue down so I can get a better bond. We'll paint the chassis next, and then we'll put the camper on. All right, I think this is good enough. I'll have to put a second coat on the air conditioner, but I don't want to wait for that to dry, so I'm going to go ahead and put it together, take our vehicle over to the junkyard, and compare it to some other campers that I have. Well, here it is, sitting in my diorama next to some other camper vehicles that I have. It's substantially larger, considering we raised the suspension and made a camper shell that is a little bit bigger than the other ones, which is what I intended to do. And I think it looks well proportioned and very modern like, at least the colors and stuff. I like it. They look good sitting here all together in a little scene. This is a more of a 90s, I guess like a 96 or 97 Ford that I have. It's a really nice representation. I think that's a Winnebago camper on that one. And on the other two, that's like a 70 Chevy or so with the vintage camper. And then this one here is a 74 Ford with the vintage camper. Those are all by Greenlight. Our custom is Hot Wheels. I guess this sums up our camper special video. It took a little bit longer to build than what I'm used to, so that's why it took longer for the video to be released. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you can, hit the hype button. That seems to make a big difference. And you could also visit my eBay store. Thanks for watching and have a great day. After filming the last part of the video and looking at the vehicle in my diorama, it just didn't look right without the marker lights being painted in. So I got the red one on the bed, and I got the front one up here by the turn signal, and I also painted the center of the rims black. So I think it looks a lot better now and more detailed. Driver's side too. There we go. Now it looks finished. Just wanted to put that little update in.
Well, hello everybody. That was a fun ride, wasn't it?